Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, 92.9thegame.com, live inside the Kia studios right now. It's an early edition of Ready or Mott. I'm your host, Thomas Mott, at 92.9 The Game on Twitter, at Real Thomas Mott on Twitter as well, as we're about to roll through this first hour. We're done at, 10 p.m., so we got a full 3-hour show tonight. So far, so good, right? Been a good show so far. And now we have to flip over to this. And quickly, before we do, the Braves did win tonight. Caleb Johnson just updated you, in case you were wondering. Braves won 1-0, so we're all happy there. But to keep the Braves conversation going, I teased this during the first segment. When I moved here, which was not too long ago, as many of you listen to the show know, I haven't been here, that long. All I kept hearing was about Liberty Media, about the Braves, and how the Braves never spend money, and the Braves never make smart moves, and when they have a good team, they don't back it up and add, this pitcher here or this bat there. They don't want to spend money. Right, the Braves' payroll was, 21st in the majors, what I keep hearing. 21st in the majors. They have this team, this young core, spend money, you can make a run, right? So everyone keeps complaining about that. And I even, at the beginning, whenever the bullpen was really, really, really bad, that first series against the Phillies, I was on the air as well. I'll call myself out when I'm wrong. And I went, wow, there it is, Liberty Media. Everyone's been telling me about it, and they were right. We didn't spend any money. The bullpen's trash. Here comes a long year, even though Acuna's going to be great, right? Fast forward, right? Hindsight's 2020. Look where we are right now. After the Keuchel move, look where we are right now. Remember, I did this 3-4 weeks ago on my show. I said, what were the three main issues that we all had with Liberty Media and the Braves management this offseason, right? So in spring training, here were the three things that callers kept calling into my show and telling me, other hosts at this station kept saying, and I myself kept saying. Do you remember them? Number one was, they did not sign enough pitching to help this offseason. Okay. Number two was the McCann and Donaldson were not enough. They needed more bats, right? They spent too much money on Josh Donaldson, Brian McCann. That you spent $25 million between the two. You could have gotten more pieces, okay? And number three, we didn't know what the young arms were. We didn't know what the young prospects were. They were all unproven, okay? Now, with that in mind, let's just go through the list here to refresh our memory, because we seem to keep forgetting on what Liberty Media has done this year for the Braves and how good they have been in making moves, okay? Remember, they signed McCann and Josh Donaldson. McCann is 4th on the team in batting average, and Donaldson is 5th on the team with home runs, right? Now, I know the whole Josh Donaldson move gets a little bit of a flack because you spent $23 million on him. You could have spread that money out a little bit. Talking to Paul Crane before he's coming on the show here in just a couple of minutes. We talked about how, well, hey, Josh Donaldson, you could have spent his money better. Okay, so there's one. But the whole Brian McCann thing for $2 million, total steal, 4th of the team in batting average. Now, the free agent relievers. Remember this? The 20 free agent relievers that were signed. I did a whole segment 3 weeks ago where I updated you guys on how these 20 free agent relievers looked, right? How good were they? Did we miss out on any good ones? Well, here's the update on them right now as we continue to show you that I believe that Liberty Media has done all the right moves this season. The 20 free agent relievers signed this offseason. Three of the 20 have ERAs under 3. Sean Kelly has a 2.38, Greg Holland has a 1.31, and Adam Ottavino has a 1.27. Every other pitcher that was signed this offseason as a free agent reliever, the 17 other, I looked it up, have ERAs over 3. And let me tell you this, the majority of them have ERAs in the 5s, 6s, 7s, and 9s. Okay, so that tells us right there the Braves not spending money on a free agent reliever unless they would have thrown in Sean Kelly, Greg Holland, or Adam Ottavino. The rest are bad. The rest would not be an improvement over the current bullpen. So they were right about that. Remember the promised young arms? Remember how it was we got Soroka and Jackson and Nuka. Who are these guys? Are they going to be good? Well, I just said the names: Soroka, Jackson, Newcomb, Tehran, Fried, even Tukey. All of them have ERAs under 4. And we look at names like Soroka and Newcomb and Jackson. I know Fried struggled a little bit recently. The young arms have been fantastic, guys. We got to give credit where credit is due. I know Luke Jackson has had a couple blown saves. Now, he had a save tonight. I mean, let's just throw that out there. He had a save tonight. But Luke Jackson has been really, really good this year. Mike Soroka is an ace. Mike Soroka has a 1-point-something ERA. It's fantastic. Fried has been a little bad as of late, but started off extremely hot. Tehran went 6 innings tonight and gave up 0 earned runs. The young arms that were promised to us that we all doubted, pretty good, right? Let's just be honest, pretty good, okay? Let's just go out. This is down the list of what Liberty Media has done this year. Remember, they extended two of their best young players, Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies, to super team-friendly deals. $100 million for Ronald Acuna. What was it? $36 million for Ozzie Albies. Steals. Everyone said that these were steals. Big thumbs up for Liberty Media there and Alex Anthopoulos and the management of the Braves. Let's keep going. They did make a trade for a reliever. They traded for Anthony Swarzak, who actually right now has the best ERA on the entire team. You do realize that, right? The trade that they made, and everyone was saying, well, I don't know what Swarzak's going to be. I was on the night they made the trade talking to people saying, well, who knows what Swarzak will be. He has a 1.17 ERA and has been, given up 3 hits in all of his games played so far this season. Another great, at 1 2/3 innings tonight. He was fantastic again to keep the ERA down. He's been absolutely great. Continuing on, they drafted just a couple of days ago the best defensive catcher in the entire draft in Shea Langoliers, who everyone keeps telling me is going to be ready to go in like a year, right? He's not going to be sitting in Gwinnett for years and years and years. He's going to be ready to go sooner rather than later. 2 more to go here as we continue showing you what Liberty Media has done this year to do everything right. They've made all the right moves. They're currently, 2.5 games back of the NL East lead, and if Philly comes back down to earth a little bit, or we beat them in a couple of days here, we're at the top of the NL East, right? We're not number 1, but we're right there in the mix for it. And finally, we just signed Dallas Keuchel to a very team-friendly 1-year, $13 million deal. He comes in having the best ground ball rate among starters in the majors last year, and we got him for $5 million less than what the Astros would have paid for him if he would have stayed there. Paul Crane's going to talk to me here. I'll ask him this question. To me, this is as team-friendly as it gets. You spent nothing on him. 0 prospects, right? You spent, $13 million? That's it. You went from the 21st best payroll in the majors to the 20th. You jumped 1 spot. That's it. So you guys can call in right now and disagree, or you can actually apologize and agree with me as well. 404-741-0929. Liberty Media has made all the right moves this season. Right, and we need to start accepting that and believing that and not freaking out and getting upset at Liberty Media when the bullpen has a rough night, okay? Because, yes, the bullpen could be better. But as we've shown, as Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves management have done this season, the free agent relievers were not that great, okay? 3 of the 17 actually have ERAs under 3. The majority have ERAs over 5, 6, 7, 8. Bad. Really, really, really bad. So when we talk about how the Braves, it's like, oh, well, they could have spent money here, or they could have spent money there. They never make any moves. The moves they've made this year, right? Austin Riley comes up. You sign Brian McCann, right? You sit there and you go, you trade for Swarzak. You move Luke Jackson to the closer role, essentially. Now, it varies, but he's been the main closer. You move Sean Newcomb out of the starting rotation, go to Gwinnett, come back as a reliever. Been fantastic. They've made all the right moves. And if you want to debate me and say that they didn't go after Craig Kimbrell, they did, and Paul Crane's going to mention this. I talked to him before he's about to come on here, and they said they made the calls, but Kimbrell wanted his 3-year, $40 million deal that he signed with the Chicago Cubs, and who here actually wants to pay him that? Who here in Atlanta, like a genuine Braves fan, can genuinely look me in the eye and say, well, he's worth it because 2 or 3 years from now, he's still going to be an elite closer. Oh, yeah? Are you sure about that? Because I'm not. I would have taken Kimbrell on a 1-year deal. That's fine, but not on a 3-year, $40 million deal. So they checked in with that. They did their due diligence. Anthopoulos did his due diligence there, but did not pull the trigger as he should have, or as he should not have, I should say. He did the right thing, and here we are. 404-741-0929. Again, is there anyone out there who still thinks that Liberty Media made bad moves this season? Can you give me an example of a move they should have made or a move that they did make that was bad? Because I just went through 9 bullet points here of moves, of every move they've made since this offseason. That's all worked out. And I'll throw in another one here, and we'll talk to Paul Crane about this. By not getting Kimbrell or Keuchel before the June 3rd draft, by not giving up any draft picks to get Dallas Keuchel, right? Just money. The Braves are now in a position when come July, right? Come closer to the end of the season, when teams are starting to sell, when bad teams who have good players are starting to, fire sale and get rid of their pitchers or batters or whatever. And if the Braves are there and the Braves are in their mix for the NL East crown or in the mix for a playoff spot, which they should be, which they will be, the Braves now can have a ton of assets and can go out there and make deals and improve the roster even more and get them ready to go for a playoff run. Again, 404-741-0929, the number to get in on the conversation. I'm just curious if there's anyone out here who can listen to all 9 of these bullet points and still tell me that the Braves have made terrible moves this offseason, because I don't see it. If you want to call in and argue about Craig Kimbrel, you can go for it. But again, did you really want to pay him 3 years, $40 million? I didn't. Keuchel's the better move. Keuchel is 100% the better move. I tweeted that out at Real Thomas Mott the night that it happened, which was like a couple nights ago. And I had like 4 people say, yeah, but you didn't get Kimbrel. Yeah, but Kimbrel still has a better, WAR. Keuchel still has a better ERA from last. What are we doing? We got Dallas Keuchel for 1 year, $13 million. That's it. We're not locked into him if he's bad, and there are reports out there that maybe his fastball, some speed has come off, so he can come into this starting rotation, and he can be really, 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 really good, and it's an instant steal, right? $13 million for, the number 1, number 2 in your rotation, instant steal. Or he can be average and still get you innings, right, and still just plug away at innings, and he's still worth 1 year, $13 million, because you can't sit here and go, well, we didn't spend the money on him, or we didn't go out and get him, because guess what? We went out and we got him, and he's ready to go. Again, 404-741-0929, the number to get in on the conversation. I see it keeps lighting up. We keep missing this. This call keeps dropping, so we're trying to get him on the line here as well. The whole point of this segment, again, is we sit here and I see the complaining about Braves management all the time on Twitter, right? It's nonstop on Twitter, and yet we sit here and we look at what they did and did not do this season. Everything's been great. Everything's been A+. The only gripes that we have is that the bullpen is not as surefire as it could be. But even with that being said, how would you fix that when the 17 of the 20 free agent relievers signed this offseason are bad, right? The ERAs are worse than what we have on our team. And if Fulte can figure it out, and if Keuchel can come in and have an under 2 ERA and dominate, then the Braves are sitting so pretty and ready to go on what can hopefully be a postseason run, whether it's the NLDS or the NL, and how far they go, we will just have to wait and see. Paul Crane is going to be inside the Kia Studios, I think, this next segment, talking about how the Keuchel deal got done, what went on with the Kimbrel deal, all the insides on that. We'll be having that and more coming up here in just about 6 minutes. And, of course, you can always call in 404-741-0929. Listen, don't touch that dial. You listen to Ready or Mott on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, 929thegame.com. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game and 929thegame.com, live inside the Kia Studios right now. This is Ready or Mott. I'm your host, Thomas Mott, at 929 The Game on Twitter. And, of course, give me a follow on my account, at Real Thomas Mott, as well. We got to do a little bit of housekeeping here, as I appreciate the Sean Tate coming on this past segment. A lot of stuff to get into, and the phone line's already lit up, so we're going to get into you guys' phone calls as well. So sit tight. If you are waiting to talk about Zion for John Collins or the trade or the draft, we will get into that. I did mention, as we came on the air, we're like preparing for the show, so I'm trying to watch the Braves and also prep. But I did not see Max Fried get beamed by that line drive. So Fried was starting the game and got hit with a, the ball was hit back towards the pitcher and it hit Max Fried. So he is out of the game now. And Tomlin has held down the fort now. He's thrown 48 pitches. He just gave up another home run. They're trailing 5-0. But the reason why Fried came out so early was not because he had given up 4 runs. It was because he was hit by the pitch. So everything I've seen so far is that it's not bad, but they're going to have to get the x-rays and figure it out with Max Fried. Again, we'll keep you updated. When we know, you guys will know. But so far, not a lot of updates from everyone I've been talking to here on the cell phone. But again, bottom 5, Braves are down 5-0 to the Dodgers. Okay, so we just had Deshaun Tate on. And I wanted him on because I wanted to set the record straight. Because he introduced this Zion for John Collins and multiple draft picks trade that people have been all been their feels in terms of not wanting to get rid of John Collins. And I want to get to Jay from Jonesboro first, because I think he's going to have a good reaction to, I guess, my and Deshaun's solo, or I guess duo, love for drafting Zion Williamson. Jay, talk to me about this whole idea of trading for Zion and why you do not want to do it.
Okay, first of all, let me say, I respect your opinion. I respect Deshaun Tate. But I think both of you guys you're missing the mark on this one for a couple of reasons. One, I've heard this stuff about generational talent before. Just a couple of years ago, I heard this about Ben Simmons. And while Ben Simmons is one heck of a player, everybody said going in, well, the one thing you got to work on is shooting, and he'll develop that. Well, here we are in the playoffs, and his Achilles heel is still the same. Zion Williams is not a good shooter. He doesn't have good handles, and when he stands next to R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish, who are 6'7" and 6'8", he's shorter than both of those guys. And the thing that kills me about it is, I keep hearing this stuff about he's a generational talent like LeBron. He doesn't have the ball handling skills. He doesn't have the playmaking skills. Nothing about him says he's going to be that type of player. And I like him. I think he's going to be a good player. But if you expect me to give up John Collins and 2 lottery picks for Zion Williams, listen, I don't know what type of numbers you think he's going to put up. I already know John Collins is a 2010 guy. I mean, I think he can go higher. How much? I mean, unless you tell me Zion going to drop 30 a night, which he's not, it's not worth it.
Yeah, but okay, let me react to that, and I'll keep you on the line because I want to get your back and forth. First off, R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson are the same height, so they're both 6'7". So I just want to clarify that as well. When you say that Collins is a 20 and 10 guy, I agree 100%. And if Zion then comes in and becomes a 20 and 10 guy as well, but then gives you what John Collins struggles on defensively, the worst defensive power forward in the league, Zion is going to be a great defender. So he could basically be offensively what John Collins is, but then actually be a serviceable defender at the 4. To me, that right there is worth it.
You don't think the Hawks defense this year is a product of how they play ball and not as individuals? I mean, I watched all the games, and if you watched at least 20 games of the Hawks this year, you think that John Collins is a bad defender because he can't play defense, as opposed to the way the Hawks are playing basketball. That's the conclusion you come to.
Well, if you look at the stats, and I know the NBA, it's an analytically driven league now. He's the worst, and he's not just a top 5 bad power forward defensively. He is the worst defensive power forward in the entire NBA, Jay. The entire NBA. And I know that, yes, it can be a product of the Hawks and the defense that they play, but even then, if you were even a serviceable to decent defender, you would not be the worst defensive power forward in the entire NBA.
You know, I didn't know that stat, so I can't really argue with you, but I will say this. I'd be curious to see where the rest of the Hawks rank on that list.
Well, I believe that Trey's the worst defensive point guard as well.
And see how the more you say that, the more things that start coming into focus. They knew they had a problem with defense. They weren't trying to play. Their whole goal was to outscore you. But once again, Zion Williamson will be a fine player. There's nothing generational about his game. You guys like a heavy-set guy who can jump out the gym. Wonderful.
Hey, Jay, listen, I appreciate the phone call. I got to go to these couple other ones, but I'll still react to you there before we get to Chris. Listen, when we say generational type player, I want to clarify this. When we say he's a generational type player like LeBron, that does not mean he has the same skill set as LeBron. He's just going to be one of those elite players for the next 10 to 15 years, one of those all-stars for the next 10 to 15 years. We're not saying that Zion is LeBron. We're saying that Zion could have the same impact on the game as LeBron James did early on in his career. Now, does Zion have to improve? Yes, he has to become a better shooter. But at the same time, if you're looking at me right now and you're going, all right, so John Collins has had 2 years to where he's at right now, and Zion had 1 year in college, I would still take Zion's game currently over a 2-year developed NBA game of John Collins. To me, it's better, and then you prospect that 10 years in the future, it's going to get better. It's going to get even better. Let's go to Chris and Marietta. Chris, your reaction to all of this Zion, John Collins stuff. Are you on my side?
Brother, man, I can't lie to you, man. Hey, I'm a real ATL. I've been a true Atlanta fan for a very long time. A move like this will remind me of the year we drafted Marvin Williams before Chris Paul. I can't take a gamble on a John Collins who, in my opinion, the next year or two could be an all-star against a Zion Williams who kind of been like almost a YouTube sensation. Yes, he did pretty good at doing it. Like I said, I'm not saying that my man can't be an all-star himself in the NBA, but it's still a lot of unknown questions of his game translated from college to the NBA. Yeah, he can jump out the gym. Yes, he can do some things, but it's a lot of other guys that do the same thing as well. And I just want to see if his game is good enough to adapt, that he just can't use his athleticism and let me use other things like the mid-range or develop his jumper. John Collins has shown me in year 2 that he's ready to take another step with this Trae Young. And I think that Hawks, with them, with these 2 first-round picks, they need to really get worried about let's get this team more stronger and not try to set themselves back again like we did years ago. That's all I got to say, brother. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, I appreciate the phone call. There you go, a real ATL. He's been here, and listen, he knows. But my argument to that is we're talking about jumping out of the gym. We're talking about how what John and Trae Young can do in the future. Here's a question that I want you guys to answer. You can tweet at me or call in. Here's a serious question. If this team doesn't draft Zion Williamson, if they don't make a trade for him, which, again, it's not likely that they do, but if they don't, and it's the same team we see right now, plus, a 5th overall pick and like an 11th overall pick, and as everyone says, and that's the thing we need to be really focused on here, is that besides Zion and Ja, it's not a very good draft. And that's the thing that we need to focus on here, because there's a very high likely that your pick at number 5 or your pick at number 6 or your pick at number 8 might not be a very good player. So let's assume that the picks at 5 and 8 were just serviceable players, not all-stars for the next 10 years. So just say serviceable rotational guys, okay? Do you think that the Hawks right now constructed with John Collins and Trae Young, and let's say they get a little bit better going forward in this next season, are they a playoff team? And I want you to be 100% honest with right now. Are they as constructed a playoff team? Are they as constructed? Now, you might say, yes, they're a playoff team. Are they a competitive playoff team as they're constructed right now? Now, again, if you call in, you say, well, listen, the pick number 5, you get Jared Culver, then he's going to develop and be great. Will he? Will he be great in 2019? Because everyone I've talked to and all the experts have said this is not a very good draft in terms of getting actual quality starters. So my question that I'm asking right now is, you call in 404-741-0929. Do you actually think, as constructed, even with 1 year of work, and I know that they're going to improve, right? John Collins and Trae are going to improve. But are they going to improve enough to where, as currently constructed, this team could become a legit playoff? And I'm not saying just an 8th seed that gets bounced by Milwaukee in round 1. I want a contender. And so when I look at Zion Williamson, here's what Zion Williamson brings. Right out of the bat, he is 3 or 4 times better defensively than John Collins. And I know we had the caller Jay on there earlier who said, listen, John's defensive stats are a product of the defense that Lloyd Pierce runs. If that's true, though, and John Collins was a decent defender, he still would not be the worst-ranked power forward in the NBA. Like, we're talking the worst-ranked power forward in the NBA. Zion comes in immediately and shores up the rim. Right away, he comes up and shores up rim protection, and is going to be really, really good overall. Now, the big thing about Zion, though, is what he would bring in terms of media coverage to the ATL. If you draft Zion, and he turns out to be a generational type player that it's not just me saying he's going to be, that all the national guys and all the scouts are saying he's going to be great, okay? So if he comes in and is great, think about the eyes. Think about the tickets. Think about the 2020 free agency class that we could potentially have if Zion pops like we all think he will, because there are a lot of people saying, jump shot, Zion's going to be good in the NBA. His game will transition to the NBA in the low post. It just will. And if Trae Young continues to move up as well, for me, that is the future of the Atlanta Hawks. We want to build a championship-winning culture. We want to build a city that free agents want to move to. Does John Collins do that? That's my question. Can John Collins get a lot better than what he is right now? I just don't know. Q on I-85, he wants to get on the conversation. Q, talk to me. Where are you at on this? Are you pro-Zion or are you anti-Zion?
I mean, I'm not anti or pro Zion. Let me first say I'm not a Hawks fan.
Okay.
I've been here for a while.
There you go. An unbiased opinion. I like it.
Objectively speaking,
yes.
If the Hawks traded John Collins and 2 players for Zion Williams, as great of a talent as he might be, you don't know. And with the NBA, it's such a sort of crapshoot at times for those people that you think you hit, don't hit. And you trade 3 players for that, I think is ridiculous.
Hey,
yes, I do think that the Hawks will be a playoff team next year. In the East, I do think they'll be at least mildly competitive. I do think that they can get out of the first round. And I think they're building something and they should stick to it.
Hey, Q, I appreciate the phone call there. Let's go ahead and move on to Cole, and then I'll react to both of them because we got to move on here quickly because it resets at the top of the hour. Cole in Lawrenceville, you're on right now. Talk to me about this whole debate. You got 30 seconds, unfortunately. We got to go quick.
Okay, well, I got something for you.
Yes.
Let me see what you think about this. I'm not worried about Zion, but just check me out.
Yes.
KD coming down here. Woo! Now take that to the bank, cash it.
Hey, listen, Cole, I appreciate the phone call. I would love Katie to come down here, but as currently constructed, Katie will not even take a meeting with Atlanta. And I hate to say that. That's not. I love the Hawks. I think the Hawks are on the uprise. But the currently constructed roster, KD could not, in my opinion, get the current Hawks out of the Eastern Conference. The current Hawks. I don't think he could get the Hawks out of the Eastern Conference. Boy, this is a great conversation. We got to go to break, though. We'll have a little bit more of this on the other side of the break, and we'll take your phone calls as well. Oh, man, I would love to have KD. And I just, currently constructed, right? We want to build a championship team, not just a playoff team, a championship team here in Atlanta. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back to the top of the hour, and we're going to do a sports flash. Don't touch that dial. It's Sports Radio. It's Radio Mott on Sports Radio 929 The Game and 929thegame.com. Here's what I want to get into now. So at the very end of that segment, again, if you were listening to the interview with Brad Rowland, I threw him a basketball question because he also works for or writes for Peachtree Hoops, which is SB Nation's Atlanta Hawks website. It's fantastic. They do a ton of great articles there. And so I threw him a question asking about free agency. So the NBA free agency is coming up. We'll get the draft, we'll get free agency, and everyone, of course, always talks about, you got to get big-name stars. Could we bring in someone like Kevin Durant? Could you bring in someone like Klay Thompson? Of course, the answer is always no and no. A couple of days ago on this show, maybe last week, I wanted to kind of get in on this whole Supermax conversation because the Supermax came out and it was like, or the All-NBA teams came out and it was like, okay, Kemba Walker of the Charlotte Hornets is eligible for a Supermax, yet he's actually most likely still going to leave Charlotte. Like he's going to turn down some like 30 to $60 million because he's basically tired of playing in Charlotte because they've never put a winning team around him. So I made this case that the Hawks need to be wary of the Kemba situation. Be wary, learn from Charlotte's mistakes from the fact that they never surrounded Kemba with a quality star to go next to him. The best job they did was bringing in, like the biggest name was what? Dwight Howard, who already was totally washed after playing in Los Angeles where Kobe Bryant called him soft. That was their best effort. And even then, it was like Charlotte never got out of the first round, and they only made the first round in Kemba's career like 2 or 3 times. So people were all calling me and texting me and saying, so I made the argument. I was like, well, we got to surround Trae Young with young stars. I had so many tweets, so many people calling in saying, Thomas, we've built through the draft to get to this point. We must build through the draft again, right? We're sitting here. We got Trae Young. Schlink got us John Collins. They got Kevin Huerter. We got 2 picks in the top 10 this year. We'll just build through the draft and get to the point where we're a playoff team. And some of you, went out and said that we'll become the Warriors eventually. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Well, here's the deal. Using the Charlotte Hornets as a guide again, the fact that we need to realize is that building through the draft is not guaranteed and does not always work. Like, you do realize that, right? Like, just because you have 2 picks in the top 10 or you have a lottery pick each year does not mean that you are going to draft quality guys who are even quality starters. Look at the names that were drafted to Charlotte after Kemba Walker. So Kemba was drafted in 2011 out of Connecticut. We all know the story, in the first round with the 9th overall pick. Here are the names that they have drafted in the 8 years since, I guess 7 years leading up to 2018. They drafted Jeff Taylor. They drafted Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, probably the best one that they picked, honestly, out of this list. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Cody Zeller, Dwight Powell, Shabazz Napier, some guy named Juan Pablo Valette, Frank Kaminsky, Malachi Richardson, Frank Jackson, Malik Monk, and then last year 2 guys that if I said their names, you would not even recognize them. Here's the deal. In 2011, probably in 2012, after we knew that Kemba was going to be a great point guard in the NBA, I guarantee you people in Charlotte were like, hey, we nailed it. We got Kemba. We'll have low draft picks. We'll keep drafting guys, and we'll sit here, and eventually we'll have a great team full of NBA draft picks who turn out to be not just stars, but just serviceable level talent. You got to remember, I can't even see this guy's the last name. Noah Vonleh in 2014 by Charlotte was the 9th overall pick. Kaminsky was the 9th overall pick. Malik Monk was the 11th overall pick. They had high draft picks, and they never hit on them. And now we're sitting here 8 years later, and we're at a point where Kemba Walker could accept a supermax contract, right? Like the most money physically possible to any NBA player, a supermax. And he's most likely going to turn it down because he wants to go play for a winner because they never went into free agency, dipped in there, and signed anybody worth note. Let's just say they didn't sign anybody. They didn't sign any stars to go next to Kemba Walker. As a Hawks fan, as Hawks fans here in Atlanta, we need to be very afraid of the Charlotte Hornets model that they have given us. We must surround Trae Young with stars. Now listen, maybe not this free agency. Brad Rowland said it again. Maybe not this free agency, but 2020, 2021. If John Collins does not turn into, now I know he's great, 20 and 10, but does he not turn into a difference maker? He only won 29 games last year with John Collins. If Kevin Huerter does not turn into a star, a difference maker, if you sit there, whoever pick 8 and 10 are, do not turn into stars next to Trae Young. You have to dip into free agency and be willing to spend money and actually get star players next to Trae. I'm not saying you have to go out and get Durant. I'm not saying you have to go out and get Klay Thompson. But you do have to make a run at a guy like if you were doing it this year, like a Jimmy Butler. Excuse me. You do have to make a run like a Tobias Harris. That kind of star level. That second tier of stars to go next to Trae Young. Guys who can be the second best player on championship teams. All right, so we're going to sit here, and we'll be 8 years into the Trae Young experience. He'll make an All-NBA team because I guarantee you that he will. I think he's going to be that great. And Trae, at the end of his 8 years, will never have played next to another star, another all-star, and it'll be like, okay, I can take a Supermax here, or I could go to one of the big markets, and boom, I'm making a lot more. I'm making still a lot of money, not as much as I would have made here in Atlanta, but I actually will play for winning teams. This kid, we could not be Charlotte. Now, I know what you're saying. Thomas, Schlink has drafted well. He'll draft well again. Who's in the NBA lottery every single year? Like, who are all these teams that tank to get draft picks, and where are they right now? Where are they right now? Of the two remaining teams, really the 4 remaining teams, where are they right now? You sit there, you look at Phoenix. Yes, they have Devin Booker, yet they're still garbage. The Knicks, they've been taking forever. Garbage. The Philadelphia 76ers, who people said tanked correctly, can't make the Eastern Conference Finals in a year LeBron James is not there. And you're sitting there with a team that they even dipped into the free agency pool. They still can't do it because Embiid and Simmons can't play together. They both can't. I mean, Simmons can't shoot. So yeah, he does all his work from inside 10 feet, and he's sitting there with Embiid's guy in his face. He's double teamed. It doesn't work. I'm not saying you have to go into free agency this year because we're still very early in the Trae Young experience. But we get to 2020, we get to 2021. You have got to spend money and get stars. You got to get someone who's made an all-star team. You got to get players to go around Trae and John Collins. Because as currently constructed, you won 29 games. So then maybe next year, if they get better, which they will, Trae and John will get better, Kevin Huerter as well, and you get your draft picks in there. And next year you win 30, mid-30s, 35, 38, 40 maybe if you're really good. But we don't want to just be the Charlotte Hornets. And for the past 8 years since drafting an all-star point guard, make 2 Eastern Conference semifinals, get bounced in the first round. We want to go further. We want to be able to actually win playoff series. And so all you guys who tweet at me, at Real Thomas Mott, it happens all the time. And listen, I read it all. And you say, Thomas, build through the draft. We did it with Trae Young. We did it with John Collins. We'll do it again this year with picks 8 and 10. There's no guarantee, right? Like every 3 years, there's like a transcendent player. Every 3 to 5 years, you get a transcendent talent, a Kawhi Leonard. A transcendent talent, a Steph Curry. The rest, and we've done this before on this show, you went through lottery picks and you go, where are the all-stars? The draft is such a hit or miss league, or hit or miss, I guess, event that you sit here and you go, free agency is where you make your money because free agency can turn your franchise around in a summer. The Lakers were garbage last year. Even the whole LeBron injury, the Lakers go out and get an all-star, a Kawhi. They go out and get a Jimmy Butler, a Kyrie Irving, boom. Like right at the top of the Western Conference. I don't care how much a dumpster fire it is. They would have enough talent. I need us to all understand that building through the draft is something that you can do. You always have draft picks, spend them, and hopefully you land one. But it's not a guarantee. It's not a sure shot. 2020, 2021, we must be expecting this team, unless we get some sort of miracle 8 and 10. If Cam Reddish is some sort of future NBA All-Star, you're going to have to go out and spend money, and I'm okay with that. Building through the draft is one thing. Winning through free agency is another thing. And I sit here and go, I'm for it. I hope that you guys are too. All right, little mini break here, about 3 minutes. We'll come back, reset to the top of hour number 2. We'll get into an NFL Quick Hits. A lot of Falcons news coming up. Don't touch that dial. It's Ready or Mott, Sports Radio, 929 The Game, 929thegame.com. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, 92.9thegame.com, live inside the Kia studios right now, joined by the one and only Paul Crane. Of course, I feel like I have Deshaun on as much as I can, and then whenever Paul's doing the late sports flashes, Paul, always a pleasure having you on.
Thomas, always a pleasure to be with you.
No big breaking news right now. I seem like I always bring you on whenever you have a little bit of a little bit of breaking news here and there, but you're also still hearing some things.
Oh yeah,
it's always churning.
It never stops. I don't put everything out, as you know, but in all seriousness, we are getting to a very busy time of year as we approach July 31 in Major League Baseball. It's going to be interesting to see who becomes sellers and some of the players that are not yet available becoming available, and then the kind of teams on the upswing being buyers. What are they going to do to go? It's going to be very interesting.
I will say it is one of the perks of getting to work with you is that some of the things you can't say on air, you still get to tell me, and then I get to hold these secrets in my mind. It's like, oh, yeah, I can't tell anybody, but it's there, right?
That's testing your professionalism, which is not that much of a test.
Listen, I appreciate that. I want to get into some Braves baseball, especially Braves pitching talk tonight, as Fulte was out there, 5 innings, 5 hits and 4 earned runs tonight. So the ERA stays above 6 right now. Any idea what's going on with Fulte, or is this simply like, you got to get him out of there eventually and maybe move Newcomb back in the starting lineup?
He struggled in the game tonight.
Yes.
But he kept it together to not the wheels didn't fall completely off the tracks, but he struggled in every inning. And when the Braves exploded for those 4 home runs, all of them solo shots in the second inning, but this is second straight night a starter's been staked with a pretty good lead thanks to the long ball and was not able to hold it. So that is problematic. But I think the Gausman situation is more problematic. I think Fultonevich, I'm not sure Brian Snitker has much choice other than to stay with him for the time being. Sean Newcomb is going to come back into the rotation on Saturday. It looks like, barring some complete collapse, and you got to pull him out of the bullpen in advance of that. So if he pitches Saturday, it looks like he's going to take Gausman's spot for 1 or 2 go-rounds until Keuchel comes into the rotation. And then to your point, could Fultonevich's spot be in jeopardy? The Braves should hope not, because they need the veteran arms out there. As good as the young pitchers have been, the unknown is what's going to happen when these young arms get over 150 innings for virtually the first time ever, and we get to the most important part of the season, and they're hitting a wall. And that's the concern. It's not that it's going to happen,
right,
but it's the concern.
You mentioned Kevin Gausman obviously going to the 10-day injured list. Now, he comes off the mound. He's in
wink.
Wait, yeah, right, exactly. It's because he comes off the mound last night and says, I feel really good. And then today we hear he has plantar fasciitis, which for people who haven't had it, and you were talking to me earlier, you've had it, and it's brutal.
I never had it. I wonder, I can remember when Peyton Manning had it when he was with the Broncos, and he threw like 4 interceptions, was like 5 for 25. I remember plantar fasciitis, and I thought to myself, well, God, come on, And then I got it. Oh, man.
Brutal.
Oh, I don't want to. I'm not a baby, but I was darn near crying just trying to walk. And I don't know how you can pitch with it, but, it is what it is. And I can't help but think there's a chance that the Braves are just thinking about what to do because they're in kind of a bind here. When you look at last night, Gausman gets staked to this lead, and before he could lose it, Snit went out and got him.
Right.
And even he didn't mince any words after the game. He said, these guys worked too hard to get the lead, and it looked like it was going to go away. And so he couldn't, he really didn't mince words. So I think they're just in a quandary because you cannot send him down. So you've put him on IL right now. So you've got 10 days to think about what to do. And do you extend the injury? Wink, wink. I don't know that they can keep doing that.
Right.
Or do you eat the contract? Do you talk to him about going to the bullpen? Other options? I don't know, but I think they're in a quandary at the moment with Kevin Gausman.
Paul Crane joining me right now live inside the Kia studios here on Ready or Mott. Keuchel, of course, playing in Single A the other night in Rome. Fantastic. I mean, we see Fan 9, had 7 innings pitched, gave up 0 earned runs. So he's obviously going to be coming into the starting rotation. I think June 20th, 21st is kind of that.
It looks like he's going to pitch his next minor league start Saturday for Double-A Mississippi.
Okay.
And then after that, look for him in the Nationals series the next week to get a spot. Maybe the 20th We'll just have to see. But there's no question if he says he's good to go at the major league level, because he's sure, Class A is not the major leagues, but Dallas Keuchel knows what he's doing. So if he says he's ready to go, he'll go.
Talk then about how the starting rotation could then kind of look in terms of if we were going to set it up for a playoff run here, because then you got to have your number one there. Do you think Soroka will stay at the number one, even though he is a young arm, or because Keuchel, if he still pitches well, right? We got to see him get out there first off. But if he pitches well, does he then become the surefire number one, then Soroka two, and then say like a Fried at three? Or how is it going to pan out here?
Kind of I don't like my crystal ball on things like that, because my first response to that would be if Keuchel was a surefire number one, he would not have been unsigned in June.
It's a good point.
So I think the concern for every other team, including if the Braves thought he was a number one, they'd have signed him in February. But that doesn't mean he can't return to number one stuff. The concern was that he had lost something off his fastball, that he was perhaps no better than a number four. That doesn't mean that's what he's going to be. He sure didn't look that way in the Class A start, but let's slow down. Again, if Dallas Keuchel has been a number one, he has been a dominant major league starter. He has obviously been a Cy Young Award winner and a postseason star. With that said, he has not yet shown it at the big league level. Let's wait and see. But I think he's going to be a great addition to this rotation. It looks like he is in good shape. He's got good stuff, and we'll just see how it plays at the major league level.
Looking forward, obviously, all of us are really getting excited for this Philadelphia Phillies series, because there is a chance, depending on how these couple of remaining games with the Pirates go and how Philadelphia's games until they get to us go, essentially the Braves can take the NL East lead. As currently constructed, even with the pitching issues, and we're sitting here with Fulte still have a 6 ERA, and now the Gausman problems, and of course the bullpen's hit or miss. The current state of the Braves is what in the grand scheme of the Major League Baseball?
I think promising.
Okay.
But I think, again, you need to slow down. It's you want to stay at the top of the division, and you ultimately want to win the division. They need to win series. So you're only as good as tomorrow's starting pitcher when you go across the long haul. So I think their rotation is still a work in progress. I think as much criticism as Brian Snitker might have taken early in the season, I think he's handled it remarkably well. The bullpen, I think he's handled well with the pieces that he's had to work with. But again, I'm not sure they're comfortable. If you gave him a shot at truth serum, would he say he's comfortable with the way it's set up right now? I would think if you gave him that shot at truth serum, the answer would be no. So is there somebody out there still to fix the back end of the bullpen? Do they have other arms that just need to work their way into it? Because Luke Jackson's been hit or miss. When you take a look at his numbers overall, he's had some very impressive outings, but he's had some very poor outings. And when you put it all together, when you mix it together, it's not the kind of thing you want in your closer when you get to September and October. So, but we're not in September and October. So is there another arm out there? And when it comes to what we started with as we approach July 31, I would think the Braves would be buyers, not sellers. But what will they be willing to part with? Back when we were talking about signing Dallas Keuchel, all they parted with was money. Yeah, it was a lot of money, but they didn't give up any of this young talent that they have. If they're going to be buyers, when we get into July, they're going to have to give something to get something.
Talk about, I want to expand on the whole buyers, prospect here, because we get to July 31. We'll know, within a reasonable, hit or miss where the Braves are going to be in terms of, July 31st is weeks and weeks and weeks away from now. If they are buyers, then they go into the market. Are they just going to start looking at all these teams sitting here who are expected to be good or maybe have good players, and they just start buy, and maybe make a lot of moves?
I think they're already looking at who might be there. My understanding is they're already talking to other teams. They have been. I think they're always doing their due diligence. So if somebody becomes available before that we approach the deadline, I think that would be the preferred, because I think the price, if you're talking to a team, if you're the Braves and maybe somebody else is out there. So, for example, one that I've heard, and I have mentioned it several weeks ago, that the Braves were talking to the Tigers about Shane Green. Now, it obviously didn't progress to the point to make a deal. I've heard they've knocked on that door again. But I've also heard the Phillies have knocked on that door. So when you get toward July 31 and teams that are quote-unquote sellers and other teams that are buyers. Now, all of a sudden, whether it's Shane Green or somebody else, the price is going to go up if the Phillies, Braves, and teams C, D, and E are all in there. Well, now it's going to change. So the Braves have to ask themselves, what are they willing to part with? Who are they willing to part with? How steep a price they're going to pay, and for what and who? And that's what I think they're doing now, because it's going to change as we approach July 31.
Paul Crane joining me right now inside the Kia studios. And listen, I mean, we talked at the very beginning of the segment. You didn't have any little bits of breaking news there, and that was one right there. So the Braves did reach out for Shane Green.
That's what I've heard, that they've called the Tigers about Shane Green. That was several weeks ago, and I've heard this week that they're back showing some interest. Now, how serious it is, I don't know, but I had someone tell me that they're hearing that the Braves are showing interest again. And Green, I think, you look at his numbers and you look what he does, this would be a great addition. But you're going to have to give something up.
Yeah.
Even for Shane Green, you're going to have to give something up. He's got 19 saves, I checked earlier. His ERA is 1.07, I believe. And so here's a guy that would fit nicely in the bullpen, you would think. But they're not going to do it, for lollipops and money.
Right.
You're going to have to give up something to get something.
I think for the diehard Braves fan who is always so angry at Liberty Media for not spending money, financial flexibility is what they all say here. I think having Paul Crane inside the Kia Studios always helps, because at least it shows the Braves do their due diligence. They do make these phone calls. Now, whether they actually, pull the trigger and send the prospects and make the trade is one thing, but at least you can confirm. You the same with Keuchel, same with Kimbrel. They were making these phone calls. They were reaching out to these players, and we eventually did get one in Keuchel, and so now we will sit back and wait and see.
Right, and like I said, I think some of the criticism is warranted, but some of it's been a little too much. But remember also, for anyone sitting there saying, "Oh, we'll give him Ender Inciarte," well, if you're going to have to give something more than a player that you already don't want or have room for.
Right.
It's going to take some of the young prospects. The teams that turn into sellers when you get to midseason are not looking for somebody else's, excess baggage at the major league level. They're looking for prospects to help their future. That's why they're going to give up some of their present for the future. So the Braves are going to have to decide internally who is touchable at what level and who is untouchable at any level. So, for example, an Austin Riley, before he got to the big leagues, would probably have been untouchable. Teams were probably calling saying, yeah, I'll give you so-and-so. I'll take Austin Riley. And so, no. We're not doing that. But they've got to already have that in mind. I'll give this prospect. They know their favorite prospects. These I'll give for a player coming in to do this at this level, or I'll do these players for a player at mid-level. They just have to decide. So I think that's what's going on right now.
It's always going to be interesting, especially now until July 31st. We're going to sit here and a lot can happen. Nothing can happen. If the Braves start losing games, then that changes things. If they keep winning games, it changes things. So, of course, that's the plug right now to follow Paul Crane at PaulCrane7 on Twitter, because really, if you want to stay up to date in terms of what he is hearing, the majority of your stuff that you're allowed to say goes out on the Paul Crane7 Twitter handle. That's the way to follow it. Paul, always a pleasure having you on.
Thomas, always a pleasure to be with you.
All right, when we come back, we will jump back into some Falcons in terms of Dan Quinn meeting with the media, talking about a whole load of Tack McKinley, Vic Beasley with the offensive line. We'll get into that and more in about 6 minutes. Don't touch that dial. It's Radio Mott on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, 92.9thegame.com.